Hello, everybody, and welcome to the How to Reprogram Yourself workshop. I have a little loading thing over here, so I'm just gonna wait for it to load. Okay, so welcome to the workshop of How to Reprogram Yourself. So, reprogramming. I'm gonna maybe start really basic. I'm sure people who are tuning in have a general understanding of what reprogramming is, but for those who are a bit newer to the topic, I'll just do a bit of an intro. So basically, as humans, we pick up like beliefs and ways of like how to do things, and we pick this up as young children. And for example, okay, like this is how you ride a bike. That'd be one kind of program. This is how you talk to your friends. This is how you eat, etc., etc. And hey, Jairus. So, you know, as we grow up, we learn all these different strategies. Some of them are beneficial, and then for the point of reprogramming is that some of the things we pick up is not beneficial. For example, like, oh, I need to like shut down in order to be safe, and that may have served us as like children, but as adults, like when we're trying to like grow and get out of our comfort zone, the program of I need to shut down in order to be safe doesn't serve us. So it's kind of like the basic thing of just like we pick up these beliefs and they run our operating system, and that's where we live our life. And it can be really hard to shift it um, if we're not aware that that's what's going on. So I think like the first step in reprogramming is actually like awareness. So awareness can run like the gamut of it can go from like being aware of your history of your childhood of where you picked up these programs in the first place, and it can be like you can still reprogram if you don't have much awareness of your childhood. It just requires an awareness of your day-to-day life. Like for example, let's say going back to the example of, oh, I need to shut down in order to be safe. You might not be aware of like where you picked up that belief. It might have been so young that you don't even remember, but you can notice yourself like whenever you're being called to like step forward, you notice yourself like shrinking, your body posture like kind of collapses, and you start to like actually notice this behavior because you're wanting more and more to like step forward. And so that moment of like being aware of it is actually what allows you to then have the power to actually change it. So so in order to change it, there's a lot of ways you can go about changing it. And there's like slower ways and faster ways. I personally recommend doing both slower and fast ways of reprogramming in order to make it more effective. So, by the way, if anybody has like something they want to reprogram, feel free to put it in the comments below, and then when we get to like the actual like the DIY like example portion of the workshop, and we can like workshop it and show you how to reprogram it. So so like in terms of like a day-to-day reprogramming, it's basically that's when the awareness comes in. It's like, okay, I notice myself shrinking. Let's say if we're using that back to that example, I notice myself shrinking. So in that moment, you can use your awareness. Actually, to be honest, like most of the times, like you'll be aware of something for a long time before you actually shift it because it's so on autopilot. Like even if you're aware of it, you might notice yourself doing it anyway. But after like a couple of times of noticing it, you'll be then have like the enough of a gap between like the response and the behavior to actually shift it. So when you have enough of that gap to actually shift it, you can be like, okay, I notice myself shrinking right now, and I'm going to speak to that part of myself that is shrinking and I'll tell myself I'm safe. It's okay. I'm safe to expand. And that's like basically you do that every time you notice that part of you wanting to shrink. It's almost as if it's like we're talking to different parts of ourselves. Like one part of ourselves is um it's like kind of being aware of like, okay, this part of me wants to protect me, but this part of me wants to grow. And so you're going to have a dialogue between the two in order to like create a change. And it's also kind of like noticing when like different parts of our programming is actually operating. So for example, like if you have like an inner critic, usually we have there's a lot of reasons why we have inner critics, but like with being based on okay, great. Yeah, we can definitely workshop that. So for example, like inner critic is a type of programming, right? And there's a lot of different reasons, but usually it's to protect ourselves in some way. Like we're gonna criticize ourselves before anybody else can criticize us. So if we're trying to reprogram like the inner critic, then we'll notice like, hey, I notice myself, I notice the inner critic going off, and this is a program. So now I'm going to speak to this part of myself. And so it could be, for example, it could be like, okay, I see that you want me to be safe by criticizing myself before anybody else does, but I just want to let you know that it's okay. Like, I'm safe, and you don't have to do that anymore. So just we can take over from here. So that's like the daily kind of thing that you do, right? Reprogramming when you catch the programming in action, right? And this is also related to inner child work as well. So as I mentioned before, a lot of our programs come from childhood. You know, our unmet needs. So a lot of programs come from our unmet needs and ways and strategies that we use to get love. So if we have an awareness of our inner child wounding, like, you know, for example, like I need to be safe by, you know, shutting down, or I need to be safe by like being aggressive, like these kinds of things. Like if we notice that, then we can also tune into our inner child and what we need in any given moment, and then kind of give ourselves what we need in that moment. So like for example, like if you feel anxious if you didn't get like a text back, and you kind of catch yourself in that anxiety, which is, you know, your inner child like feeling abandoned. So instead of reinforcing the pattern of like when someone doesn't respond to me, I'm abandoned, you can be like, okay, what do I need in this moment right now? Instead of like instead of kind of like indulging the anxiety, it's like, okay, I need my own love. I need to feel like I'm worth it and I'm worthy of love. Then just like give yourself that love in that moment. So it requires the daily long term slow approach requires like being attuned to ourselves and what we're feeling and our needs in any given moment. Um, and so like if you want to train the muscle of like the long term reprogramming, like meditation is a really good tool for it because it allows you to kind of like to create that space to be able to like look at these programs within ourselves. Okay, so um, and there's like a middle approach between the fast, like the slow and the fast way. So we just kind of went over the slow way, which is just to basically catch it in the moment and choose like a different way of being. That's like the slow way of reprogramming, right? And I think that's important. And the middle way I would say is actually like a meditation and kind of going back to certain moments in our history to like and like doing what I would say is called timeline therapy, which is kind of like reimagining certain events. Because, you know, we got these programs like usually in our when we were really young, right? Sometimes it's actually ancestral as well. And if you and like I'm not trying to impose a belief, but you know, personally I've also dealt with like past life stuff too. So there's a lot of different ways we can pick up programs, but like most of it is actually coming from our childhood. So if we're going back to that, most of it comes from our childhood. Like what we can do is you know, like doing a meditation. You know, if anybody follows TB magnetic work, like their whole work is based off of like doing meditations to get into a certain state. So that's kind of like going. I don't know exactly like there's theta brain levels and etc. Like we're in like beta right now, our waking everyday life, but like the programs are usually deeper in, and I don't remember all the brainwaves, but by doing a meditation, we can access like the deeper brainwaves and kind of work with the belief on the root. So, for example, let's say we picked up a belief of I need to be aggressive in order to stay safe. Then what we can do is like do a meditation and like kind of go back to us as a kid and like kind of create like a feeling of safety from like that brainwave state of meditation and create a feeling of safety and reprogramming that way. And so that also requires like a consistent practice, but it is a little bit quicker than like what you do in like your day-to-day like normal brainwave state. Um and yeah, you can do that for anything where you know like where you know for sure like this is where I picked up this program. It was at this moment in my history. You can always like go back and do like a meditative state kind of like timeline therapy where you change actually what happened. Um you can do this for like, you know, anything that seemed kind of particularly like a really painful moment in your history. Like if it's like super super traumatic, that's probably more something that you would need EMDR for, or going to like a specialized therapist, or like healer for. But like if it's something that was just kind of like a really tricky moment in your history, and it kind of, like for example, let's say like you were teased, like someone called you like a bubble butt, I don't know, and then now you're insecure about your butt, but you can kind of like go back to that moment when someone called you bubble butt and be like, hey, like your butt is great, like who cares what they think, kind of you imagine yourself like as an adult, kind of going back to that moment in history and like changing the way that played out, so then you don't have like this program of like my butt sucks. I don't know, that's kind of like a really like a like a funny example, but you know what, you get what I'm saying. So yeah, that would be kind of like the middle approach. It's not as slow as like the daily reprogramming, but it's not as fast as like the other ones, which I'll get into, which is basically like anything that is working on like the body level or like deeper level brain states. So probably most of you, actually I don't even know everyone who's here, but like I'm gonna assume that some of you are aware of emotional freedom technique. So this is what I've been using for like at least 3 years now. And it's probably like the fastest, well, I mean, before I got into theta healing, that was like the fastest way for me to reprogram. So essentially what that is just like um, noticing like the feeling and then releasing it and replacing it with a new feeling that you want to feel. And so that's kind of like, to be honest, I don't fully understand the traditional Chinese like acupuncture point system, but it's body based, right? So I think for that reason, like it's faster because it's kind of going on like the deep, because the body is also synonymous with subconscious. So I think for that reason, it goes in deeper because it's accessing like that subconscious level. But you can also like incorporate different kinds of somatics into your reprogramming. Like, um, for example, like if we're trying to build in a feeling of more safety in our body, so we're not operating from like our survival strategies of like this is how I stay safe. Um, like things like rubbing my back, like that's been really helpful for like reprogramming this feeling of safety. So, and also kind of like noticing in your body like moments of like trauma or moments of like wounding, like noticing like where that is in your body and like actually like feeling it. Because like usually it's stuck there because like, well, actually, what I'm gonna say is like when we put awareness to it, it feels witnessed and safe enough to like actually let go and release. So if we have like a moment in history that's associated, and our we have like a feeling in our body associated with like this moment in history where we formed like this negative belief program, if we kind of tune into that and feel it in our body, um, and like notice where it is in our body, that can also shift it. So I'd say like faster ways of reprogramming is basically body based and like things that like access the subconscious. So yeah, but the thing is like with body sensations, it's like it does require a little bit more attunement to somatics, which most of us are not really, Western society is like very disassociated, where most of us are not trained in somatic awareness. So like that kind of thing can be easier to do with like a somatic therapist. But EFT, I really would always recommend for everybody because it's easily accessible. So yeah, I think we're at the point now where we can do like a demo. If anybody else watching has like something they want to work on, then yeah, feel free to write in the comments. So worth being based on external factors, particularly friendships and relationships in general. Okay, so we can use that as an example. So Darius, do you wanna like maybe say more of like when you feel like what are like the feelings that come up when you're feeling like, oh, my worth is dependent on external factors? Do you want it, it'll be more effective if you kind of can go into like the feeling state. Otherwise, if you don't want to, I can kind of just like make an assumption. So feel free to like comment more about that. Also, I had some people wanting approval to join the healing space, so let me do that. Okay. Okay, so we'll just use that example, and I'll just guess like what are you? Okay, no, I got the comment. Hurt, underappreciated. Okay. So, oh yeah, the thing with EFT is like you need water, or you don't need water, but it's recommended. Anna betrayed. Okay, great. It's good stuff. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna reprogram. Okay, actually, Jairus. So what do you want? What do you want to feel instead of feeling like worth based on external factors? Would you? I'm gonna guess like unconditional worth, but I don't want to put it like words in your mouth. So let me know like what you do want to replace it with. Okay. Well, while you think about it, I think I can maybe start. Okay. So EFT. So basically, you can follow after me, and basically the setup is you kind of go into all of the negative feelings you're feeling first. Then you kind of just validating all negative emotions. Then you release what you want to let go of, and then you replace it with what you do want to bring in. Okay. So with EFT, we always start with the karate chop point over here. So and it starts with a setup statement of even though. So and yeah, you can if this is something that you want to work on as well, just repeat after me basically. So even though my I feel like my worth is always dependent on external factors, and I feel so frustrated with how my worth is so fragile at times to the comings and goings of other people, to the whimsies of other people. I just wish I could have a more solid sense of worth, but I just don't know how. And I can't help but base it off of what other people are doing or saying or feeling about me. And I feel so insecure sometimes when I don't get approval from other people. I can get so hard on myself and feel so hurt by their actions, by me thinking that they don't approve of me or appreciate me. I feel so rejected sometimes and like I'm abandoned, even betrayed by people. But even though I have a habit of basing my worth off of other people, I choose to deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. I choose to be a stand for myself and know that whatever I'm looking for in others is something that I can give to myself. It's something that's always within me. choose to release the idea that my worth and safety is dependent on other people's actions, and replace it with the knowing that I can access my worth, my safety, and love within myself. I choose to release my behaviors of self abandoning myself and betraying myself and replace it with a deep commitment to myself, to be on my own side, and to always be there for myself, and to love my inner child. Because I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself. Finish out the tapping. So yeah, that's kind of a basic like example of how it works. It's like going into the muck of the feelings, like all the shittiness and the frustration and what have you, and like doing that for as long as it takes for you to like actually get all of it aired out, and then releasing it and replacing it with what you do want. Um, oh man, I just didn't see a bunch of comments. Thanks, Dee, for joining. Self-worth taken for granted. Yeah. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, and as always, it's like you know yourself best for like what points you need to hit on. So like I hope that was like a good general framework, like if you need to go deeper. Okay. And yeah, thanks for the nice comments. So yeah, that's like my number one tool, my absolute go-to. But like things like so this is another point. It's like sometimes, awareness is great, but like we all have blind spots. So like I would also always recommend like working with someone as well to like help reprogram things. Um yeah, I think the point that I also missed, or maybe it's not something I missed, but like something I do want to cover is like trigger work as well. Um, yeah, no problem, Jairus. So trigger work is like something I alluded to, but like I kind of want to go deeper into it because triggers. So like kind of doing a one-on-one on triggers. Triggers are kind of anything that like, if the reaction, like what's going happening on the surface seems like chill enough, but our reaction just feels really intense. Like for example, like um, someone like kind of shoves us or not shoves us, like for example, someone kind of like is trying to get through us, and they kind of bump into us, and we feel like so enraged and so pissed off. Yeah, you're welcome, Diego. So yeah, so like basically that's kind of like you being triggered because like you like if you feel so pissed off at something that's like not as like it is kind of a shitty thing, but like if you feel so angry at it, you can tell like your reaction is mismatched to what's actually happened. So that's a trigger, right? And triggers usually have to do with something that happened in our childhood. And so basically what trigger work is actually because usually like before we have any awareness of it, like usually when we're triggered, our go-to default is just to like repress it, stuff it, like distract ourselves. My go-to before I was aware of trigger work was just to like spend hours and hours on the internet, right? So, but trigger work is actually instead of avoiding it, like actually going into it. Like, so like for example, that example of someone has just like kind of bumped into us and we feel pissed off. Instead of just kind of like walking around like repressing our pissed offness, it's actually like when we have a moment to like be like, okay, wow, I was really pissed off at that moment. And it's just actually like tuning into like, okay, what is that actually about? You know? Sometimes we have an awareness of why that is. It's like, oh, because my brother always pushed me and made me feel like really small when he did that, and it's triggering that. Or like, we might not have an awareness of like why we are, but I think the thing with trigger work is to have an openness to being like putting intention, like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I do want to know, so I'm putting it out there that I want to know what this is about. Um, while also knowing we don't always have to know what it's about to transform it. So the thing is, like with that, it's like what we can do is like kind of just like actually let the emotion move through. So like when we have a moment, we can like punch a pillow and scream and rage and like get the feeling out. Because often it's just kind of like oftentimes like it's a trigger because it's just like a trapped emotion. So if we give it an outlet and allow it to move through and complete, then it's no longer like a trigger. Um, Although usually, like in my experience, like sometimes I'll take like multiple times of like working with it before it's like fully cleared out. But um, yeah, I think that's also a really important thing to keep in mind when we're doing reprogramming. So that is everything I wanted to cover today. So I'm going to do a bit of a summary. And if anybody has any like questions, then like, this is a good time to put them in the comments or anything like that. So yeah, in summary, like, so reprogramming, we pick up a bunch of beliefs and programs of like how to operate, how to gain love, how to survive, that kind of thing when we're young, or even ancestrally. Um, Actually, I kind of want to go into an anecdote about ancestral beliefs. So yeah, I actually in October, like I pulled the beginning of October, I pulled a tarot card about the theme of the month would be, and I got Five of Wands, I think, which is the card of conflict. And I had gotten into so many conflicts in October, and it was insane. And I noticed myself like feeling so anxious about them, like that I never felt before, like feeling like because I don't usually experience anxiety like that strongly or really ever, but like I noticed myself like being so afraid to like open this email that I couldn't even do it for like a couple of days. And then yeah, it was really intense. And then like so then I went to like my theta healer, and then she basically told me um all this anxiety that about all the conflicts I was having was actually based on ancestral stuff. So basically, all the conflicts I was having was with white people, and what my the data healer said that like my ancestors, dealt with a lot of conflict with white folks, like British imperialism, facing jail and threat of death if they got into a conflict. So basically, what I was feeling the anxiety was actually like a fear of death because I was having conflict with like white people. So that was like really mind blowing to me. So yeah, I just wanted to put out there like that is a thing, and if you like, you can also look into epigenetics. Like if you are, you want more like scientific kind of rationales for things, like it's kind of the same thing. So yeah, that was I forgot to mention. I did want to mention that during the workshop, but I'm mentioning it now. Ancestral beliefs are a thing. So yeah, we pick up all of these things like during childhood or in our ancestors or in our past lives, and and they're all strategies for like staying safe, essentially gaining love, these kinds of things. And then we gain awareness of these things that we picked up, and we can reprogram it like in various ways. Some are like more slow and long term, some are like really quick and like really powerful to the point. So like the quick ways are kind of like the daily things that we do, like noticing what we need, noticing when we're triggered, um, and like noticing when the program is kind of acting out and choosing something else, right? The medium speed way would be like meditation and like timeline therapy, kind of like going back and like at the moments of triggers and moments when the beliefs got formed and like rewriting them, essentially experiencing them in a new way. And like the quicker ways to do it would be things that are like body based and things that kind of access like a deeper brain state. So like things like somatic therapy and just feeling your body, as well as EFT. And like theta healing, hypnosis, those are things I didn't mention here, but because unless you train to do it, you can't do it yourself. But like definitely theta healing has like changed my life. So that's my number one tool I would recommend for anybody. But like those are other ways that you can like shift it quickly. So yeah, that is the workshop in summary. So thank you all for joining. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you all here. And if you have like any thoughts that you didn't come up here, feel free to DM me for any other questions. Yeah, Jairus brings up a really good point of keeping logs of triggers. Yeah, like I do that too, and it's such a good thing because a lot of times you don't have the emotional bandwidth or space to rewire it in the moment. So like keeping a list, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, and Too Big Magnetic has like it's if you don't know where to start, that's also like a really good resource that you can look into as well. For like it does focuses more on like the meditation aspect of it. Yeah. So yeah, thank you all, and I hope you have like a really awesome evening, good weekend, and I'll catch you at the next workshop or video. Okay, bye guys.